It's time to do more toe work. As you may know, when you can spread your toes, when you've got control over different actions of your toes, your balance is much better. And after all, most of us are making an effort to increase our vertical time compared to our horizontal time. But it also increases the circulation and engages your legs in such a way that you have just a little bit more pelvic control. We'll begin seated. Find a chair that's not upholstered so that you can sit forward and sit tall on the chair. In your seated position, with your ankles right under your knees or thereabouts, lift your toes and take your toes down. See if you can spread your toes as you lift them and draw them down. See if all of them come up and you've been able to master that. Now, you'll find on YouTube, as you continue to lift your toes up and down, you'll find on YouTube one of the most popular ways to build the arches of the feet is to use a towel for your toe exercises. I'm not so crazy about that, but since it is all the rage, I'll just remind you of what that is. You can take a hand towel or a washcloth and with your toes on the towel, draw the towel in and just gonna get this nice grip. And you'll notice that the arches of your feet are very engaged. And doing this on both feet allows you to engage very nicely for your toe practice. I'm not a huge fan of this. I find that I'm rarely doing this kind of work. But the work that I do is to lift the heels up, take the heels down, lift the toes up, take the toes down, lift the heels up. Just doing this action before I get out of bed engages my feet and strengthens the ankle action. So I feel very safe getting out of bed, going to the bathroom, whatever first thing in the morning actions you do. I also like the zigzag pattern. All of these we've covered in other videos. And if you can do zigzag, not seated, but standing, that will benefit you because by enabling yourself to weight bear on your legs, you obviously engage the muscles of the legs better. One of the things that I have been challenged by for years is to have the big toe act independent of the baby toes. So take your right foot just on top of your knee. Take all your fingertips of the left hand to the toe tips of the baby toes. Now see if you can move the big toe independent of the baby toes. So you're drawing it down, you're lifting it up. And just by providing some resistance, toe tips to fingertips, you're able to get a little bit more control. I find this to be really challenging. But of all the methods that I've tried, just pressing the fingertips to the toes works so much better than pressing your toes down on the ground and lifting up from there. It engages a totally different muscle group when you do that. So do that on the left side. Just try it out. Maybe this doesn't work as well for you, but just by having that tactile impression from the fingertips to the toe tips just enables me to get a little bit more freedom in my toe, big toe, while the baby toes are working very nicely to press against the fingertips. And again, you can try that action that others suggest, which is just pressing the toes down, and see if you can get independent movement of the big toe, just working it nicely. Sometimes the feet, in shoes that really aren't good for toe spreading at all, the feet, the toes get so cramped that just putting a little weight on the toes really helps out. So we'll come to the mat in all fours position. Walk your hands back toward your knees and slowly get a little bit more weight at the heels. So as you take more weight there, you'll feel a nice stretch in the Achilles tendon. Maybe you can take your hands a little bit closer to your knees. Maybe you can take your hands off your knees and onto the tops of the thighs. So you're really working these toes nicely. The heels like to go wide when you're doing this, so see if you can hug the heels in toward each other. And at some point, you'll find, that's a little bit more than I can handle, so you'll come out of the pose at that time. Step your right foot right between your hands and keep your back toes planted nicely. Your toenails are pressing. Take your hands right at the top of the right knee. Can you press into the toes and get just a little lift so that you feel a nice elongation all the way from the toe tips to the pelvis, and slowly take the knee down. If that doesn't work for you, just keep your knee down, but press your toes very fully. Let's try the other side. Take your left foot forward and take your hands just to right above your knee. Settle into the pose. Press your toenails down. Oh, it feels like this knee does not want to lift up. I'm pressing the toes as fully as I can to get a little bit more engagement on this side. But the knee's not so happy with this. But the more I press the toes, the more I feel this engagement, and it just helps me draw a little bit deeper in the pose. Release your hands down. Tuck your toes under once again with the toes tucked under. Draw your pelvis back. Walk your hands up to your knees and see if you can, once again, create this freedom in the action of the feet. With your hands on the mat, just draw the hands forward. Slowly walk them toward you, but keep on pressing them forward. So you gradually take a little bit more weight on your heels. You're pressing the hands forward to bring a little bit more encouragement to your feet to really work nicely. As your hands come close to your knees, you can keep your hands where they are, or slowly take your hands to the tops of the thighs and enjoy a nice stretch to your toes. You'll find as you're working the toes, it actually creates so much of a circulatory effect that you'll feel a little heat. You'll feel the body heating up just in these really static sort of poses. So there you have it. These different ways to work your feet, always good as a refresher for us because it's so important in our yoga, in our circulation, in our pelvic stability, and in our balance. Thank you for practicing with me. Namaste.